37 minutes after the lamb chops were served, my mother-in-law stood at the head of the dining table, tapped her wine glass with a silver knife, and told 14 members of the Hayes family that I was the reason her son had been miserable for 7 years. Linda Hayes wore emerald silk, a double strand of pearls, and the kind of smile women use when they have already decided you are beneath them. She looked beautiful that night, polished, expensive, untouchable, and completely unaware that the television behind her was already connected to my laptop. "My son has tried," she said, her voice soft enough to sound wounded and loud enough for every person in the private dining room to hear. "Ethan has given this marriage everything a good man can give: patience, loyalty, forgiveness." Loyalty. I almost laughed. Ethan sat to her right, staring down at his untouched wine like the answers might be floating in it. His hand was under the table. I knew because Vanessa Cole's hand was under the table too, and the small, satisfied curve of her mouth told me exactly where their fingers were. Vanessa was introduced that evening as Ethan's business associate. She was 29, bright-eyed, red-lipped, and wearing the same red dress she had worn in the hotel footage from 6 weeks earlier. That was her first mistake. Linda's was thinking I came to dinner unprepared. "You see," Linda continued, placing one hand over her heart, "some women marry into a family and spend their whole lives trying to belong. Others spend their whole lives proving they never should have been invited in." Every fork stopped moving. I felt my sister-in-law's eyes flick toward me. Ethan's uncle shifted in his chair. Someone coughed once and then went silent. Linda looked directly at me. "Madison has always chosen work over marriage, control over tenderness, suspicion over trust. And frankly, I think my son deserves peace." Peace. That was what she called it. Not the suite at the Rivergate Grand Hotel that cost $1,800 a night. Not the champagne, the private dinner, the jewelry box, or the valet charge attached to Ethan's black Mercedes on a night he told me he was in Atlanta meeting clients. Not the corporate card from my event company that Linda herself handed to the front desk. No. To Linda Hayes, peace meant silence. It meant a wife swallowing humiliation politely while her husband sat beside his mistress at a family dinner. It meant everyone agreeing that the woman who noticed the lie was more dangerous than the man who told it. I took a sip of water and let her keep talking. Because here is something I learned after 7 years of being married into the Hayes family. People like Linda do not fear pain. They cause it too often to fear it. They fear exposure. And I had brought a projector cable. "Sometimes," Linda said, lifting her glass, "the kindest thing a woman can do is let go before she destroys the man she once claimed to love." Ethan finally looked at me then. There was warning in his eyes. Not guilt, not regret, warning, as if I was still the one who needed to behave. I set my napkin beside my plate and stood. The room turned toward me. Ethan whispered, "Madison, don't." That was the first honest thing he had said all night. Linda smiled, slow and victorious. "Do you have something to say?" I looked at her pearls, at Vanessa's red dress, at my husband's pale face, at the long table filled with people who had watched Linda slice me open with perfect manners and done nothing to stop her. Then I said, "Yes, I brought a family video." Linda's smile twitched. I walked to the television mounted on the wall behind her. My laptop was already open on the sideboard, hidden behind a vase of white hydrangeas. I clicked the file named Hayes Family Memories. The first image on the screen was our wedding photo. Linda gave a small, cruel laugh. "Really, Madison?" I clicked again. The screen changed to black and white security footage from the Rivergate Grand Hotel lobby. Timestamp, 8:14 p.m. Ethan walked into frame with his hand on Vanessa Cole's lower back. No one breathed. I heard Vanessa's fork hit her plate. Ethan stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Turn it off." I didn't look at him. At 8:22 p.m., Linda Hayes appeared on the screen, walked to the front desk, opened her purse, and handed the clerk my company card. Then the audio began. "Don't call Madison," Linda said clearly. "Put it under event expenses. My daughter-in-law never checks the small charges." The glass slipped from Linda's hand and shattered against the hardwood. Red wine spread beneath her feet like a stain finally showing through, and I still had 4 clips left to play. Before the Rivergate footage, before the dinner, before my mother-in-law's wine glass shattered on the hardwood floor, there was a version of me who still believed marriage could survive humiliation if you dressed it up as patience. My name is Madison Hayes. I was 34 years old when I learned that my husband's affair had not been a secret from his family. It had been a family project. I met Ethan Hayes at a charity auction in Savannah, Georgia, 7 years before the dinner that ended everything. The event was for a children's literacy foundation hosted inside an old brick building near Forsyth Park with hanging lights, white tablecloths, and enough old money in the room to make even the silverware look inherited. I was there as the event planner, not a guest. Back then, my company was still young. Maddox and Lane Events had one office, 2 employees, and a coffee machine that made a sound like it was fighting for its life. I worked 16-hour days, wore heels until my feet went numb, and smiled at people who spoke to me like I was part of the furniture. I didn't care. I loved the work. I loved taking chaos and turning it into something beautiful. Seating charts, vendor contracts, floral budgets, lighting problems, drunk donors, late caterers, none of it scared me. Numbers made sense. Timelines made sense. People were harder. Ethan was one of the people who seemed easy at first. He was standing near the silent auction table, laughing with 2 men in navy suits when I noticed a server drop an entire tray of champagne flutes behind him. Glass exploded across the floor. Everyone turned, but Ethan was the only one who bent down to help. That was what I remembered later. Not his smile, not his tailored jacket, not the Hayes name. I remembered him kneeling on the floor in a room full of wealthy people who were pretending not to notice the mess. "Careful," I said, stepping toward him. "You'll cut your hand." He looked up at me and smiled. "Then I'll have a heroic story to tell." "You helped pick up broken glass at a fundraiser?" "I'll make it sound better." He did make things sound better. That was Ethan's gift. He could take something ordinary and polish it until it shone. A delayed closing became a complicated negotiation. A lost client became a strategic shift. A lie became bad timing. A betrayal became a mistake. But I didn't know that then. That night he asked for my number while I was arguing with the florist over missing centerpieces. I told him I didn't date clients. "I'm not a client," he said. "I'm just a man admiring competence." Competence. Not beauty, not charm, not sweetness. Competence. I should have known how hungry I was to be seen by exactly that word. My father was a union electrician from Macon. My mother was a night shift nurse. They raised me to work hard, speak clearly, and never sit at a table where someone made you feel lucky to be invited. I thought I understood that lesson. Then I married into the Hayes family. The first time Ethan took me to meet his mother, Linda Hayes opened the front door of her townhouse in Ardsley Park wearing cream linen and pearls at 3 in the afternoon. She looked at me the way women like her look at a handbag before checking the label. "So," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek, "you're Madison. Not, 'It's lovely to meet you.' Not, 'Ethan has told me so much about you.' Just my name, spoken like a question she had already answered incorrectly. Her house smelled like lemon oil, gardenias, and money that had learned to whisper. Framed black and white photographs lined the hallway. Hayes men in courtrooms, Hayes women at charity luncheons, children in sailor collars standing beside live oaks. Every picture seemed to say the same thing. "We were here before you." Ethan placed his hand on my lower back and guided me inside. "Mom, be nice." Linda laughed softly. "I'm always nice." That was the first thing I learned about Linda Hayes. She confused politeness with kindness, and she used the difference like a knife. At dinner, she asked where I went to college, what my parents did, whether my business was more weddings or little office parties, and if I planned to keep working once Ethan and I had children. "We haven't talked about children yet," I said. Linda tilted her head. "Oh, I assumed women who plan weddings for a living thought about families." Ethan squeezed my knee under the table, not in support, in warning. Afterward, while he helped his mother carry dishes to the kitchen, I stood alone in the dining room looking at the silver-framed family portraits. There was Ethan at 10 in a navy blazer. Ethan graduating from college. Ethan beside his late father in front of a courthouse. Ethan shaking hands with the mayor at some fundraiser. A whole wall of Ethan being prepared for the life everyone expected him to have. There was no space on that wall for me. When we got into the car, Ethan sighed before I could speak. "She's just old-fashioned," he said. I didn't say anything. "You got quiet." She asked if my company was little office parties. He laughed, like I had missed the joke. "Madison, that's just how Mom talks. Don't take everything as an insult." I looked out the passenger window at the dark streets of Savannah sliding past. That became the rhythm of our marriage long before we were married. Linda would say something sharp. I would react. Ethan would translate cruelty into tradition and ask me to be more understanding. By the time he proposed, I had already learned which parts of myself made his mother uncomfortable. My work ethic looked like ambition. My independence looked like disrespect. My silence looked like guilt. My success looked temporary, as if one day I would finally put down my laptop, soften my voice, and become the kind of wife Linda could explain to her friends. The proposal happened in Charleston during a weekend trip Ethan said he planned himself. Later, I found out Linda had chosen the hotel, the restaurant, and the photographer hiding near the fountain. She even picked the ring. "It's a Hayes setting," she told me at brunch the next morning, lifting my hand to inspect it. "Classic, tasteful, nothing too loud." Nothing too loud. That was what Linda wanted from me. A quiet ring, a quiet wife, a quiet life arranged around her son. I tried. God help me, I tried. After the wedding, Ethan and I moved into a white 2-story house near Habersham Village. I paid half the down payment from my business savings, though Linda told everyone Ethan had settled beautifully. I decorated the guest room, stocked the kitchen, learned which wine his uncle liked and which cousin couldn't sit near which aunt. I hosted Thanksgiving the second year and spent 3 days cooking while Linda stood in my kitchen rearranging serving platters. "The Hayes family usually does the turkey on the blue china," she said. "I don't have blue china." She smiled. "I know." Ethan heard it. He always heard it. That was the part that took me too long to accept. He heard every comment, every correction, every little public reminder that I had married up and should be grateful. He just decided my discomfort was easier to manage than his mother's disapproval. When I told him she made me feel small, he said, "She's trying to help you fit in." When I told him she treated me like a guest in my own home, he said, "You know how important family is to her." When I told him I needed him to stand up for me, he rubbed his face and said, "Why does everything have to be a fight with you?" So I stopped bringing it up. That is how a marriage hollows out. Not all at once, not in one screaming argument or one slammed door. It happens in the small moments when you tell yourself swallowing the hurt is easier than explaining why it cut you. My company grew faster than anyone expected. By our 5th anniversary, Maddox in Lane Events was handling corporate retreats, museum galas, luxury weddings, and private charity dinners across Georgia and South Carolina. I had 12 employees, vendor contracts with 3 major hotel groups, and clients who booked us 18 months in advance. Ethan called it "your little empire" when he was proud of me in public. At home, he called it "the reason you're always tired." His own real estate career looked good from the outside. Nice suits, glossy business cards, photos with sold signs. But beneath the surface, things were less impressive. Deals fell through. Commissions came late. He spent like success was something you could summon by imitating it. Linda covered the gaps. At first, I didn't know how often. A check here, credit card payment there, a short-term bridge when Ethan needed to look liquid for a deal. The Hayes family called it support. My parents would have called it dependence. Then Ethan started traveling more. Atlanta, Jacksonville, Hilton Head, client meetings, developer dinners, last-minute showings. He would kiss my forehead on the way out the door and say, "Don't wait up." The first time I smelled another woman's perfume on his shirt, I convinced myself it was from a client hugging him. The second time, I washed the shirt before I could think too long. The third time, I held the collar to my face in the laundry room and stood there until the washing machine beeped. When I asked him about it, he smiled with tired eyes. "Madison," he said, "you plan events around women wearing too much perfume for a living." It was a good answer. That was the problem with Ethan. His answers were always good. A week before everything started unraveling, he told me he had to go to Atlanta overnight for a meeting with a developer. He packed late while I sat on the bed reviewing a proposal for a hospital fundraiser. I watched him fold a black dress shirt I had never seen before. "No suit?" I asked. "Dinner meeting," he said. "With developers?" He glanced at me. "Yes." Then he placed a small velvet jewelry box into the side pocket of his bag. I looked at it. He looked at me looking at it. "Client's wife," he said quickly. "Birthday gift. He asked me to pick it up because he was flying in late." I nodded. Not because I believed him, because some part of me, some tired and humiliated part, was not ready to know. Linda called 10 minutes after he left. "He'll be busy tonight," she said without saying hello. "Try not to bother him." I stared at the dark driveway through the bedroom window. Why would I bother him? A pause, then Linda gave a soft laugh. "You do get sensitive when Ethan travels." Sensitive. That word again. I said goodnight and hung up. 3 days later, I was sitting in my office with a vendor contract open on my screen when my assistant knocked on the door. "There's a Claire Donovan from the Rivergate Grand Hotel on line 2, she said. "She says it's about a charge on the Maddox and Lane corporate account." I looked up slowly. "We don't have an event at Rivergate this week." My assistant's expression changed. "I know." I picked up the phone. And that was the moment my marriage stopped being a suspicion and became an invoice. The woman from the Rivergate Grand Hotel had the kind of voice people use when they already know something is wrong and are trying very hard not to be the one who says it first. "Mrs. Hayes?" she asked. "This is Madison." "My name is Claire Donovan. I'm the corporate accounts manager at Rivergate Grand. I'm calling regarding a charge connected to Maddox and Lane events." I sat very still. Outside my office, I could hear the normal sounds of a Thursday afternoon. My assistant answering the front desk phone, someone laughing near the printer, the low hum of the air conditioner struggling against Savannah humidity, life continuing in that rude, ordinary way it does right before yours splits open. "What charge?" I asked. There was a soft rustle of paper on Claire's end. "A total of $4,860.12 was processed under your company's event account last Friday evening." Last Friday. The night Ethan said he was in Atlanta. I turned my chair toward the window. From my office on Broughton Street, I could see a delivery truck double parked beside the curb, a woman walking a golden retriever, 2 tourists taking pictures of the old brick storefront across the street. Everything looked normal. That offended me somehow. "We didn't have an event at Rivergate last Friday," I said. "I understand. That's why I'm calling. The charge was attached to your standing vendor profile, but there was no event contract on file. Our billing team flagged it this morning." My fingers found a pen on my desk. I clicked it once, then again. Then I forced myself to stop. "What was charged?" Claire hesitated. That hesitation told me more than the amount. A one-night stay in the Cypress Suite, in-room champagne service, a private dinner for 2, valet parking, and a deposit for a future private dining reservation. My stomach tightened, but my voice did not change. "Who authorized it?" Another pause. "The authorization was signed by Linda Hayes." For a moment I thought I had misheard. Not Ethan, Linda, my mother-in-law. I looked down at the legal pad in front of me. At the top of the page I had written a checklist for a hospital fundraiser. Linens, lighting, auction paddles, donor seating. Beneath that, without realizing it, I wrote one word. "Linda." "Mrs. Hayes?" Claire said. "I'm here." "I'm sorry. I know this is uncomfortable." That word almost made me smile. Uncomfortable was a tight pair of shoes. Uncomfortable was sitting beside Linda at Thanksgiving while she corrected the way I folded napkins. Uncomfortable was your husband laughing too hard at another woman's joke. This was something else. "Send me everything," I said. "I can send the itemized invoice." "No, I need the full billing packet. Signature authorization, staff notes, account activity, time-stamped receipts, and any internal communication attached to the charge." Claire was quiet long enough for me to hear her breathing. "Are you disputing the charge?" "Yes." "On what grounds?" "Unauthorized use of a corporate account." The words came out clean, professional, almost cold. That was the first time that day I recognized myself. Not as Ethan's wife. Not as Linda's disappointing daughter-in-law. Not as the woman who had washed perfume out of her husband's shirts because knowing felt too expensive. As Madison Hayes, owner of Maddox and Lane Events, the woman vendors called when numbers did not match. Claire's tone changed slightly, less apologetic, more official. In that case, I'll open a billing review. Because this involves a corporate account, we may need written confirmation from you that Mrs. Linda Hayes was not authorized to use the card or approve charges under your profile. She was not. And Mr. Ethan Hayes? I closed my eyes. He was not. I heard Claire type. There's something else, she said. Of course there was. What? There was a privacy note added by the front desk at check-in. My hand tightened around the pen. Read it. I don't know if I should. Claire, it's my company account. A small breath. Then she read, guest requested no contact with primary account holder, authorized by Mrs. Linda Hayes, charged to be categorized under event expenses per guest instruction. The office around me seemed to tilt by one quiet inch, not because Ethan had lied. I had known that already, somewhere deep in the part of my mind that kept working even when my heart refused. But Linda, who corrected my table settings and told me family loyalty was sacred. Linda, who called me sensitive. Linda, who said a good wife did not embarrass her husband. Linda had stood at a hotel counter and told strangers not to call me while she used my company account to hide her son's affair. Mrs. Hayes, Claire said gently, I need the packet by email today. I can send it within the hour. Include everything. I will. I hung up and sat there with the phone still in my hand. For several minutes, I did nothing. Then I opened a blank folder on my desktop and named it Rivergate. People think betrayal sounds like screaming. It does not. Not at first. At first, betrayal sounds like a new folder being created on a quiet computer. I saved the billing packet when it arrived 41 minutes later. The invoice was exactly what Claire had described. Cypress Suite, champagne, dinner for two, valet parking, private dining deposit, privacy handling fee. Every line item was neat, polite, and impossible to argue with. At the bottom was Linda's signature. Linda A. Hayes. Her handwriting was elegant, controlled, familiar. I had seen it on birthday cards, charity invitations, Christmas gift tags, and thank you notes that always said just enough to remind me I was being tolerated. Now it sat under a hotel invoice like a confession. I opened the staff notes next. 8:06 p.m. Female guest arrived ahead of primary male guest. Requested suite key be held at desk. 8:14 p.m. Male guest arrived. Valet took possession of black Mercedes registered to Ethan Hayes. 8:19 p.m. Female guest and male guest proceeded to elevator. 8:22 p.m. Mrs. Linda Hayes arrived to authorize corporate account billing. 8:25 p.m. Mrs. Hayes requested no call be placed to primary account holder, stated account holder was not to be disturbed. Not to be disturbed. I laughed then. It was not a happy sound. It came out once, sharp and dry, and disappeared into my office. My assistant knocked lightly and opened the door a few inches. Madison, are you okay? I looked up. Her name was Tessa. 26, smart, loyal, and far too observant for her own good. She saw the folder open on my screen. She saw my face. I'm fine. I said she did not believe me. To her credit, she did not pretend she did. Do you want me to hold your calls? Yes. For how long? I looked back at Linda's signature. Until I say otherwise. When Tessa closed the door, I opened our company credit portal. I froze the corporate card connected to Rivergate. Then I downloaded the last 90 days of transactions. The first Rivergate charge was not the first. There were smaller ones before it. $212 at the hotel bar 5 weeks earlier, labeled client drinks. $689 for dinner 3 weeks earlier, labeled vendor meeting. A florist charge I did not recognize. A jewelry store charge Ethan had explained as a client favor. A car service charge on a Tuesday afternoon when he said he was showing property in Hilton Head. By the time I finished sorting the transactions, I had a timeline. Not perfect, not complete, but enough. Enough to know my marriage had not collapsed in one night. It had been itemized. At 5:17 p.m., Claire emailed again. Mrs. Hayes, per your request in our billing review procedure, attached are still images from public hotel areas confirming individuals associated with the disputed charge. Additional footage may be available pending written confirmation of account ownership and dispute authorization. My hand hovered over the mouse. For all my professional calm, for all the invoices and timestamps and neat little folders, I was not ready, because a bill could still be abstract. A signature could still be explained. A transaction could still be twisted by someone like Ethan into a misunderstanding if he smiled softly enough and touched my arm while he said it. But a video? A video was a door you could not close once you opened it. I downloaded the first file. The footage was black and white, silent and brutally ordinary. The Rivergate lobby appeared from a high corner angle. Marble floors, brass lamps, a vase of flowers big enough to pay someone's rent. Guests crossed through the frame, dragging suitcases, checking phones, laughing. Then Ethan walked in, black shirt, no tie, hair slightly damp like he had showered right before leaving the house. He was smiling. That was the first thing that hurt, not the fact that he was there. The smile. I had not seen him smile like that at me in months. Vanessa Cole entered the frame 3 seconds later. I knew her immediately. Ethan had introduced her at a company mixer as someone from the commercial side. She had shaken my hand with both of hers and said, "I've heard so much about you," in a tone that now made my skin go cold. In the footage, she walked straight to my husband. He placed his hand on her waist. Not hesitantly, not accidentally, not like a man making a mistake, like a man arriving where he belonged. They moved toward the elevator. Right before the doors opened, Vanessa turned her face up to him, and Ethan kissed her. I paused the video. There it was. No perfume to explain. No traffic mix-up. No client meeting. No mother telling me I was too sensitive. Just my husband's mouth on another woman in a hotel lobby. I expected to cry. I'd not. Instead, I felt something inside me go very still. It was not peace. It was not even anger. It was the clean, cold click of a lock turning. I opened the second file. Linda entered at 8:22 p.m. She wore ivory. Of course she did. She always dressed like innocence when she was about to do something cruel. The camera showed her walking to the front desk, removing a card from her wallet and speaking to the clerk. There was no audio, but I did not need it. I had the staff notes. Do not call Madison. Put it under event expenses. My daughter-in-law is not to be disturbed. I watched the clip 3 times. On the third viewing, I noticed something that made my throat close. Vanessa came back down to the lobby while Linda was still at the desk. Linda turned, saw her, and smiled. Then she hugged her, not awkwardly, not politely, warmly, like family. I sat back in my chair and stared at the frozen image. My mother-in-law had never hugged me like that, not on my wedding day, not when my mother had surgery, not when I landed the biggest contract of my career, not once in 7 years. But there she was, wrapping both arms around the woman sleeping with her son. My phone buzzed. Ethan. "Hey, long day. Might be late tonight. Don't wait up." I looked at the message, then at the frozen footage, then back at the message. For a moment, I imagined calling him. I imagined saying every word. I imagined hearing the panic catch in his throat. I imagined Linda calling 5 minutes later with her polished voice and her poisoned advice. And then I imagined them deleting everything I had not found yet. So I typed back one word. Okay. It was the calmest lie I'd ever told. That night, Ethan came home at 10:43. I was in the kitchen, washing a mug that had been cleaned for several minutes. He walked in smelling like rain and the cedar cologne I gave him for Christmas. "Hey," he said, loosening his tie. "You're still up." Couldn't sleep. He kissed my cheek. I stood there and let him. That is the part people judge until it happens to them. They think if you discover betrayal, you throw the glass. You scream. You demand answers, but sometimes the evidence is still arriving. Sometimes your enemy is still arrogant. Sometimes the smartest thing a betrayed woman can do is smile until the trap finishes building itself. "How was your meeting?" I asked. "Exhausting. Where was it again?" He opened the refrigerator and took out a bottle of water. "Atlanta." I leaned against the counter. "Right, Atlanta." He glanced at me. Just a flicker, tiny, almost nothing, but I saw it. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled. "Just tired," he nodded, relieved by the answer he wanted. Then he went upstairs to shower another woman's perfume off his skin. I waited until the water started running. Then I opened my laptop again. There was a new email from Claire. Subject: additional footage available. Private dining room audio. The message was short. "Mrs. Hayes, the attached clip includes audio from a private dining room connected to the future reservation deposit. Please review only if you wish to proceed with the dispute." My finger hovered over the trackpad, then I clicked. The video opened on a small private room at Rivergate. Ethan sat at a round table with Vanessa beside him. Linda sat across from them, champagne glass raised. The audio crackled for half a second. Then Linda's voice came through, clear as church bells. "To the future, Mrs. Hayes." Vanessa laughed. Ethan did not correct her. He lifted his glass, and that was the moment my grief left the room and strategy took its place. I did not sleep that night. Ethan did. That may have been the cruelest part. He came to bed smelling like soap and cedar cologne, kissed my shoulder in the dark like he had not spent the evening toasting another woman as the future Mrs. Hayes, then rolled onto his side and was asleep within 10 minutes. I lay beside him and listened to his breathing. 7 years of marriage, and suddenly the sound of my husband sleeping felt like evidence. Not comfort, not intimacy. Evidence. He could lie, shower, kiss me goodnight, and rest. I could barely swallow. The video of Linda raising that champagne glass kept replaying in my mind. To the future, Mrs. Hayes. Not to Ethan's happiness. Not to new beginnings. Not even one of those careful half sentences people use when they want to say something shameful without leaving fingerprints. No, she had used the title she never gave me. In 7 years, Linda had called me Madison, dear, sweetheart when people were listening, and that girl when she thought I was not. But never daughter, never family, never Mrs. Hayes in a way that sounded like belonging. Vanessa Cole got it over champagne in a private dining room paid for with my company account. I turned my head and looked at Ethan's back in the dark. For one sharp second, I wanted to wake him up. I wanted to shove the laptop in his face and watch him scramble. I wanted to ask if he loved her, if he hated me, if he knew his mother was helping him turn me into a joke behind my own back. But I had spent my career learning that the first confession is rarely the best evidence. People panic. People delete things. People call their mothers. So I stayed still. At 4:18 in the morning, I got out of bed, took my laptop to the kitchen, and made coffee I did not drink. The house was silent except for the refrigerator humming and the occasional creak of old wood settling around me. Our house. The house I had paid half the down payment on. The house Linda still called Ethan's home when she forgot to pretend. The house where I had hosted Christmas dinners, client brunches, Linda's bridge club luncheons, and one miserable Thanksgiving where she told me the gravy was brave. I opened the Rivergate folder. Then I made 3 copies. One went to an encrypted cloud drive. One went to an external hard drive I hid in the bottom drawer of my office filing cabinet. One went to a private email account Linda did not know existed and Ethan would never guess. After that, I created a spreadsheet. People talk about heartbreak like it is all tears and slammed doors. Mine had columns: date, vendor, amount, description, Ethan's explanation, Linda's involvement, evidence attached. A hotel bar charge 5 weeks earlier, a dinner charge 3 weeks earlier, jewelry store receipt, car service, florist invoice, Rivergate suite, private dining deposit. By 6:30 a.m., the story had organized itself in front of me. Not the emotional story. That was too large and ugly to hold all at once. The financial story. And financial stories were always clearer because money did not blush. Money did not swear it loved you. Money did not say you were overreacting. Money left a trail. At 7:12, Ethan came downstairs in gym shorts, rubbing sleep from his face. "You're up early," he said. I closed the spreadsheet before he could see it. Couldn't sleep. He walked to the coffee maker and poured himself a cup from the pot I had made. He did not notice I had not touched mine. "Big day?" "Vendor calls," I said. He nodded like he was listening, then looked at his phone and smiled. It was small, quick, but I saw it. A private smile. The kind people give to messages they are not supposed to receive in front of their wives. "Something funny?" I asked. His thumb moved fast across the screen. "Just a client." That word had become a hotel room with good lighting. He kissed my cheek on his way out. "Don't work too hard." I watched him leave through the back door and thought, for the first time in our marriage, neither should you. You are not very good at it. At 9 that morning, I called Rebecca Shaw. Her office was on the 3rd floor of a historic building near Johnson Square, behind a door with frosted glass and no decorative flowers. I liked that immediately. Linda believed in appearances. Rebecca Shaw looked like a woman who billed by the truth. She was 56, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, and dressed in a charcoal suit that made every other person in the room seem underprepared. I handed her a flash drive, a printed invoice packet, screenshots of the charges, and a timeline. She did not gasp. That was another thing I liked about her. She read in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Every now and then she underlined something or made a note in the margin. I sat across from her desk with my hands folded in my lap, feeling like I was watching a surgeon study an X-ray. Finally, she looked up. "Your husband is having an affair." "Yes." "Your mother-in-law knows." "Yes." "She authorized at least one charge using your corporate vendor account." "Yes." "And she instructed hotel staff not to contact you." "Yes." Rebecca leaned back in her chair. "Madison, this is not just infidelity. I already knew that. Still, hearing it from someone else made the room feel steadier." "What is it?" "It is misuse of a corporate account at minimum, potential fraud, depending on authorization, access, and intent. It is also marital misconduct, concealment, dissipation of marital assets if shared funds were used, and possibly civil exposure for your mother-in-law if she knowingly presented herself as authorized." I stared at the papers between us. There are moments when language changes your pain. It does not remove it. It gives it edges. Until then, I had been a betrayed wife. In Rebecca's office, I became a plaintiff. "What do?" I asked. "First, you do not confront him without a plan." "I wasn't going to." "Good. Second, you lock down anything business-related, change passwords, review cards, notify your accountant. Third, we prepare for divorce before he knows you are preparing." The word divorce landed hard. I had known it was coming. Still, knowing a storm is moving toward you does not stop the sky from cracking when it arrives. Rebecca watched me carefully. "You do not have to decide everything today." "I think I do." "No. Today you decide to protect yourself. The rest follows." I nodded. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since the night before. "If I show the footage publicly at a private family dinner, what happens?" Rebecca did not answer immediately. "Why would you want to?" "Because Linda is planning something." "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet. But I know her. She doesn't gather people unless she wants an audience." Rebecca's mouth tightened. "Then be very careful. You can share evidence with counsel, law enforcement if needed, your accountant, the financial institutions involved. Public exposure is different. The hotel lobby footage is from public areas. The private dining room was connected to my disputed account. That helps. But Madison, understand me. Once you press play in front of his family, you cannot unpress it." I looked at the frozen still printed on the top page. Linda hugging Vanessa. "I know." "No," Rebecca said. "You need to really know. There will be no polite reconciliation afterward. No family Christmas, no neutral ground. They will call you cruel because they cannot call you wrong." That sentence stayed with me. They will call you cruel because they cannot call you wrong. I left Rebecca's office with a list of instructions and a strange calm sitting beneath my ribs. Not peace. Peace was too soft a word. Purpose. By the time I returned to my office, Tessa had reorganized my afternoon and placed a sandwich on my desk without comment. I nearly cried over that sandwich. Not because I was hungry, because it was the first kind thing anyone had done for me in 2 days without wanting something back. At 2:40, Linda called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Madison," she said, "we need to talk." Her voice had that polished warmth she used when she was about to put a leash around someone's neck and call it jewelry. "About what?" "Ethan." I looked at the Rivergate folder on my screen. "What about him?" A pause. "He is struggling." Of course he was. Men like Ethan were always struggling right after they were done enjoying themselves. "With work?" I asked. "With you." There it was. Linda sighed softly, as if the weight of my failures exhausted her. "I do not want to say this over the phone. Meet me tomorrow at the tea room on Bull Street, 11 o'clock. "I have work." "You always have work. That is part of the problem." My grip tightened around the phone. "Fine, 11. Good," she said. "And Madison?" "Yes." "Come prepared to listen, not defend yourself." The line went dead. I sat there smiling at nothing. Linda thought she was summoning me. She did not understand she had just given me the next piece. The following morning, I arrived at the tea room 10 minutes early and chose a table where I could see the door. Linda arrived exactly on time, wearing pale blue and carrying a cream envelope. She kissed the air beside my cheek. "You look tired. You look rested." Her smile flickered. We ordered tea neither of us wanted. For 5 minutes, Linda talked about the weather, a charity auction, and a woman from church who had lost all sense of discretion during her divorce. Then she folded her hands on the table and looked at me with rehearsed sadness. "Madison, a good wife knows when her husband is slipping away." I said nothing. "Ethan has been lonely for a long time." Still nothing. "You are ambitious. No one can deny that, but ambition does not keep a man warm at night. There are insults so old they should come with dust." I stirred my tea. "Are you telling me Ethan is having an affair?" Linda's eyes sharpened. "I am telling you that marriage is complicated." "Is Vanessa complicated?" That did it, only for a second, but I saw it. The tiny break in her expression. Then she smiled. "Vanessa understands Ethan's world." "And I don't? You have never tried?" She slid the cream envelope across the table. Inside was a separation agreement. I read the first page, then the second. Ethan would remain in the house temporarily. I would avoid any public statements that could damage the Hayes family reputation. We would pursue an amicable separation. Linda would provide $25,000 to assist with my transition. My transition. Like I was a sofa being moved out of a room. "You brought legal papers to tea," I said. "I brought you a graceful exit." "And if I don't take it?" Linda leaned forward. Her voice dropped. "Then you will learn what it feels like to have this family stop being polite." I looked at her elegant hands, her pearl earrings, her calm face. For 7 years I had mistaken Linda's control for strength. Now I saw what it really was, fear wearing good perfume. I slid the envelope back. "I don't sign things in tea rooms." Her jaw tightened. "You are making this harder than it needs to be." "No," I said, standing. "I think I am making it honest." That night, Ethan fell asleep with his phone on the nightstand. At 12:16, the screen lit up. Vanessa. I did not touch it at first. Then the preview appeared. "Can't wait to sit across from her and watch your mother finish this." I took a photo of the screen with my own phone. Then I sent it to Rebecca. Then I lay back down beside my sleeping husband and stared at the ceiling. Vanessa thought Linda would finish me. Linda thought she had arranged my graceful exit. Ethan thought I still did not know. None of them understood the difference between a quiet woman and an unprepared one. The Hayes family dinner was in 2 days, and I had just decided what I was bringing. The morning of the Hayes family dinner, I woke up before my alarm and stared at the ceiling for 11 minutes. Not because I was afraid, because I was calm. That should have scared me more than it did. For 7 years, mornings in my marriage had a shape. Ethan's alarm would go off first. He would hit snooze twice. I would get up, make coffee, check vendor emails, and listen to him complain about whichever client, lender, or contractor had disappointed him that week. Sometimes he would kiss my shoulder. Sometimes he would forget. Sometimes Linda would call before 8, and whatever fragile peace existed in our kitchen would be gone before the first cup of coffee cooled. That morning, Ethan's alarm rang at 6:45. He reached for it, silenced it, and rolled toward me. "Big night tonight," he murmured. I looked at him. His eyes were still half closed. His hair was flattened on one side. He looked younger when he first woke up. Softer. Almost like the man I had once believed I married. "Your mother's dinner," I said. "Yeah." He rubbed his face. "She's been planning it for weeks." "I know." He opened one eye, studying me. "You're not going to make it uncomfortable, right?" There it was. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I know my mother has been cruel to you." Not, "I'm sorry Vanessa will be there." Just a warning wrapped in a question. I sat up and reached for the robe at the end of the bed. What would make it uncomfortable? He exhaled like I was already exhausting him. "Madison." I turned. "What?" "You know what I mean." "No," I said, "I really don't." He sat up then, suddenly more awake. "Vanessa is coming because Mom invited her. She's connected to the Bradshaw development deal. This dinner matters." "Your mother's birthday dinner matters to a real estate development deal?" His jaw tightened. "That's not what I said." "It's what you meant." He looked away. For a second, I thought he might say something honest, something small, something I could use later to remember that he had once been capable of telling the truth when cornered. Instead, he said, "Please don't embarrass me tonight." I almost smiled. Embarrass him, not hurt me, not betray me, not use my company account to pay for a hotel room and then let his mother offer me $25,000 to disappear quietly. Embarrass him. I tied my rope belt. I'll behave exactly as well as everyone else does. He frowned. I did not ask what that meant. was Ethan's problem? He never asked the question that might require a real answer. At the office, I spent the day preparing two events. One was a corporate leadership retreat for a logistics company out of Jacksonville. The other was the controlled collapse of my marriage. By noon, Rebecca had reviewed the final folder. The footage was copied to 3 places. The invoices were printed. The separation papers Linda had given me at tea were scanned. The screenshot of Vanessa's message was saved, timestamped, and attached to a note. "Can't wait to sit across from her and watch your mother finish this." I stared at that sentence longer than I should have. Not because it hurt, because it explained so much. All those months I had felt watched, judged, measured as some invisible woman standing just outside the frame of my life. Vanessa had not merely been sleeping with my husband, she had been waiting for my seat, and Linda had been pulling the chair out for her. At 2:15, I called the Rivergate Grand. "The Magnolia Room, this is Daniel speaking." "Daniel, this is Madison Hayes. I'm attending the Hayes family dinner tonight in the private dining room." "Yes, Mrs. Hayes, I see the reservation. I believe Mrs. Linda Hayes requested access to the presentation screen." "She did. For family photos, I think." "Of course she had. Linda never entered a room without staging it first." "I'll be bringing the file," I said. "Could you make sure the HDMI connection is ready?" "Absolutely. Do you need a technician present?" "No, just have it set up before we arrive." "Not a problem." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat back in my chair and laughed quietly. Linda had planned to use the screen for sentimental photographs. Generations of Hayes men, wedding portraits, charity galas, perhaps 1 or 2 carefully selected images of Ethan as a boy to remind everyone why his happiness mattered more than my dignity. She had built the stage. I was only changing the script. Tessa knocked on my office door at 4. "You have the black dress hanging in the conference room," she said. "Steamed, no wrinkles." I looked up. "You steamed my dress? You brought it in a garment bag. I assumed it mattered." "It does." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. For a moment, she was not my assistant. She was just a young woman standing in front of another woman on the edge of something irreversible. "Madison," she said carefully, "I don't know what's happening. I know enough to know I shouldn't ask. But whatever tonight is, don't let them make you feel crazy." My throat tightened. I had not cried when I saw Ethan kiss Vanessa. I had not cried when Linda called her the future Mrs. Hayes. I had not cried in Rebecca's office, but I almost cried then, because kindness is dangerous when you have been holding yourself together with wire. "Thank you," I said. Tessa nodded once. Then, because she was Tessa, she added, "Also, your eyeliner is in the top drawer. Waterproof." At 6:30, I stood in the office bathroom and put on the black dress. It was simple. Long sleeves, clean neckline, fitted without being revealing. The kind of dress Linda would hate because there was nothing to correct. I wore no necklace, no bracelet, just my wedding ring. One last time. I looked at it in the mirror while I washed my hands. Ethan had slid that ring onto my finger in front of 200 people and promised to forsake all others. Linda had sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, performing maternal tenderness for the audience. I wondered if she had already known then that promises were decorative in the Hayes family. By the time I arrived at the Rivergate Grand, the sky over Savannah had turned violet. The hotel glowed against the evening like something from an old postcard. Brick walls, brass lamps, polished windows, live oaks bending over the sidewalk. I had organized events there before. Weddings, fundraisers, anniversary dinners. I knew the scent of the lobby, lilies, lemon polish, expensive candles. I knew which elevator stuck on the 3rd floor and which bartender remembered every guest's drink after one order. Now I knew something else. I knew exactly where Ethan had kissed Vanessa. The spot was near the elevators, beside a round table holding a vase of white orchids. In the footage, he had pulled her close there. In real life, the marble floor beneath that place was spotless. That offended me too. Some stains should show. "Mrs. Hayes?" Daniel from the restaurant appeared beside me, young, nervous, carrying a tablet. "The presentation screen is ready. Your mother-in-law asked if we could start the family slideshow after dessert." "Perfect," I said. "I may begin earlier." He nodded. "Of course." Then he lowered his voice. "Miss Donovan said to let you know everything is arranged." Claire. For the first time all day, I felt something like gratitude settle over me. Thank you, Daniel. The private dining room was at the back of the restaurant behind two dark wooden doors. I heard Linda before I saw her. That soft, musical laugh, the one she used when men with money were listening. When I stepped inside, 14 faces turned. Linda stood near the head of the table in emerald silk, pearls glowing at her throat. Ethan stood beside her in a navy suit, looking handsome enough to lie successfully. Vanessa Cole was near the bar in the red dress. Seeing it in person was stranger than seeing it on camera. On the footage, it had looked like evidence. In the room, it looked like arrogance. Vanessa smiled at me. Not nervously, not apologetically, like a woman who believed the night had already been decided. Madison, Linda said, crossing the room with open arms. She hugged me, in public, of course. Her perfume wrapped around me, floral and sharp. I'm so glad you came, she whispered near my ear. No, you're not, I whispered back. Her body stiffened for half a second, then she pulled away, smiling. Everyone, Madison is here. As if I were late, as if I were being graciously admitted. Ethan came toward me and kissed my cheek. His lips barely touched my skin. You look nice, he said. So do you. His eyes searched my face. Again, that flicker of unease. Good. Linda directed everyone to their seats. I noticed the arrangement immediately. Ethan at Linda's right. Vanessa beside Ethan. Me halfway down the table between Ethan's Aunt Patricia, who smelled faintly of sherry, and his cousin Mark, who once asked if my company was basically Pinterest with invoices. It was a punishment seat. Linda was not subtle when she believed she had already won. Dinner began with oysters, then salad, then lamb. Wine was poured, toasts were made. Stories were told about Hayes vacations, Hayes graduations, Hayes weddings, Hayes men who built things, and Hayes women who preserved them. I ate slowly. I listened. Vanessa laughed at Ethan's jokes, touching his sleeve each time. Ethan did not move away. Linda watched them with a private satisfaction she did not bother hiding. Aunt Patricia leaned toward me during the salad course. Your work is still keeping you busy, dear? Yes, that must be difficult for Ethan. I set down my fork. Why? She blinked, surprised that I had not accepted the sentence as fact. Well, men need attention. So do women. She looked confused, as if I had introduced a new concept at the table. Across from me, Vanessa smiled into her wineglass. Linda saw it. Ethan saw it. I saw all of them seeing. After the lamb arrived, Linda stood. The room quieted at once. She tapped her glass with a knife. Before dessert, she said, I'd like to say a few words. Of course she would. Linda looked around the table, gathering sympathy before she had even begun bleeding. This family has survived loss, scandal, disappointment, and change, she said. But what has always held us together is loyalty. I looked at Ethan. He stared at his plate. Loyalty, Linda continued, requires grace. It requires knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. It requires understanding that a family name is bigger than one person's pride. Her eyes moved to me. There it was, the knife leaving its sleeve. I have watched my son suffer quietly, she said. I have watched him try to keep peace in a marriage where peace was not returned to him. And I think tonight, surrounded by people who love him, it is time to acknowledge that Ethan deserves happiness. Vanessa lowered her eyes at exactly the right moment. She had rehearsed that. Linda's voice softened. Sometimes the most loving thing a woman can do is let go before she destroys the man she once claimed to love. The table went silent. Ethan whispered, Mom, but he did not tell her to stop. That was the last gift he gave me. Proof. Linda lifted her glass. To Ethan, she said, and to a future where he is finally understood. I stood. My chair made a small sound against the floor. Every face turned toward me. Ethan's eyes widened. Madison, he said quietly. Don't. Linda smiled. Do you have something to say? Yes, I said. My voice did not shake. I brought a family video. For the first time all night, Linda's smile failed. I walked to the television. The walk from my chair to the television could not have been more than 12 feet. It felt like crossing 7 years. Behind me, I heard the scrape of Ethan's chair. I heard Linda inhale through her nose, sharp and offended, the way she did when a server poured the wrong wine or I used the word business instead of hobby. I heard Vanessa shift in her seat. No one else moved. The private dining room at the Rivergate Grand had gone still in that strange that suspended way rooms do right before something breaks. The candle flames trembled in their glass holders. Silverware reflected the low gold light. Linda's untouched champagne sat at the head of the table, tiny bubbles rising to the surface as if even the drink was waiting. I reached the sideboard. My laptop was exactly where Daniel had left it, tucked behind the white hydrangeas Linda had chosen for softness. She liked white flowers. She said they photographed well, clean, tasteful, appropriate. I moved the vase aside. The HDMI cable was already connected. "Madison," Ethan said again. This time his voice carried. Not loud, not angry, afraid. I turned just enough to look at him. He was standing beside his chair, one hand flat on the table, his face pale under the warm dining room lights. "Sit down," I said. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. For years, Ethan had known exactly what to say. He could talk his way out of missed dinners, late nights, strange charges, perfume on his shirts, Linda's cruelty, my questions. He could make a lie sound tired, make betrayal sound like stress, make my pain sound like poor timing, but he had no prepared answer for my calm. Linda stepped forward. "This is neither the time nor the place." That almost made me laugh, because the time and place had been chosen by her. The private room, the family audience, the sentimental slideshow, the toast about loyalty. Vanessa sitting at Ethan's side in a dress the color of a confession. Linda had prepared a stage for my humiliation and then objected when I changed the lighting. "You're right," I said. "It should have happened much earlier." Then I clicked play. The first image appeared on the television. Our wedding photo. For 1 second, the room relaxed. I felt it. A collective exhale, small and foolish. Linda's shoulders dropped. Vanessa's mouth curved. Ethan stared at the screen as if maybe, by some miracle, I had decided to embarrass myself with nostalgia instead of evidence. There we were. Ethan in a black tuxedo, smiling like a man with clean hands. Me in lace, looking at him like I had been chosen. Linda in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, performing love beautifully. I let them look at it. Then I clicked again. The screen went black, then gray. Then the lobby camera from the Rivergate Grand filled the room. Timestamp Friday, March 18, 8:14 p.m. Ethan walked into frame wearing the black shirt he had packed while telling me about Atlanta. No one spoke. Vanessa appeared 3 seconds later. Someone at the table made a small choking sound. Ethan's Aunt Patricia whispered, "Oh my God." On screen, Ethan smiled at Vanessa. That smile again. I had seen it so many times in my mind that it should have lost power, but seeing it enlarged above Linda's carefully arranged dinner table made it brutal in a new way. It was no longer my private wound. It belonged to the room now. Ethan placed his hand on Vanessa's waist. At the table, Vanessa whispered, "Ethan, not Madison, not I'm sorry, Ethan." Even then, she reached for him first. The footage continued. The elevator doors opened. Vanessa turned her face up toward my husband and Ethan kissed her. A clean, undeniable kiss. Not accidental, not friendly, not misunderstood. The room froze around it. I paused the video with their mouths still touching on the screen. Then I turned to Ethan. "Atlanta traffic was terrible, right?" His face changed. I had seen Ethan embarrassed before. When a deal fell through, when Linda corrected him in front of guests, when his credit card declined once at a restaurant and he joked too loudly while switching to another one. This was different. This was a man realizing the room had stopped believing his version before he had time to tell it. "Madison," he said, "please." Linda recovered first. Of course she did. "This is disgusting," she said, voice shaking with righteous outrage. "To bring this into a family dinner, to humiliate your husband in front of people who love him." I looked at her. "Funny, I thought you said people who love him deserved the truth." Her eyes hardened. "That is not truth, that is cruelty." "No," I said. "Cruelty is sitting beside a woman for 7 years while helping your son betray her." Linda's lips parted. Several heads turned toward her. Good. I clicked the next clip. 8:22 p.m. Linda Hayes entered the Rivergate lobby. The effect was immediate. Ethan sat down, not slowly. He dropped into the chair like someone had cut the strings holding him upright. Vanessa went still. Linda did not move at all. On screen, she crossed the lobby in ivory linen, her purse over one arm, chin lifted. She approached the front desk with the confidence of a woman who had never been denied anything she believed belonged to her. The clip had audio attached from the front desk review. A hotel clerk's voice came through first. "Would you like us to contact the primary account holder for approval?" Then Linda's voice, clear, controlled, unmistakable. No, don't call Madison. Put it under event expenses. My daughter-in-law never checks the small charges. The silence after that line was almost physical. It pressed against the table, against the walls, against every person who had smiled at Linda 10 minutes earlier while she spoke about loyalty. A glass slipped from her hand. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered. Red wine spread beneath her emerald dress. For the first time since I had known her, Linda Hayes looked ordinary, not elegant, not untouchable, not powerful, just a woman standing in the mess she had made. Uncle Robert, Ethan's father's brother, stared at her. "Linda," he said slowly, "what the hell is this?" Linda turned on me instead of answering him. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing. You are destroying this family." "No," I said, "I am showing them the part you hid." I clicked again. The next image was not footage. It was the invoice. Cypress Suite, $1,800. Champagne service, $320. Private dinner for two, $740. Valet parking, $65. Privacy handling fee, $150. Future private dining deposit, $1,200. Corporate account, Maddox and Lane Events. Authorized by Linda A. Hayes. Her signature appeared large on the screen, elegant, controlled, damning. "You used my company account," I said. "Not Ethan's card, not your own, mine." Linda shook her head, but the movement looked wrong now, weak and too fast. It was going to be corrected. "By whom?" She said nothing. "By Ethan," I asked. "The man who told me he was in Atlanta? Or by Vanessa, who thought she was attending her own rehearsal dinner?" Vanessa stood suddenly. "I didn't know about the card." I looked at her. "No, you only knew about the wife." Her face flushed. Ethan put a hand over his eyes. "Madison, stop!" I tilted my head. He lowered his hand. His eyes were wet, but I did not trust tears that arrived only after evidence. "Can we talk privately?" The absurdity of that nearly took my breath. Privately, after Linda's speech, after Vanessa's smile, after 14 people watched me be carved open with polished silver and family values. Now he wanted privacy. "Privacy," I said, "is what honest people ask for. What you want is silence." Aunt Patricia whispered my name like a warning. I ignored her. Then I played the private dining room clip. The screen changed to another room inside the same hotel. Smaller, softer lighting, round table, champagne bucket. Linda seated across from Ethan and Vanessa. Ethan bowed his head. He knew. Vanessa covered her mouth. Linda closed her eyes. The audio crackled once. Then Linda lifted her glass on screen. "To the future, Mrs. Hayes." The room broke in pieces. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Jesus." Ethan's cousin Mark pushed back from the table as if the footage itself had a smell. Uncle Robert stood up and walked to the window, both hands on his hips. On screen, Vanessa laughed. Ethan lifted his glass. He did not correct his mother. That was the part that landed hardest. I could feel it moving through the room, person to person. Not just the affair, not just Linda's help, the comfort of it, the celebration, the fact that they had sat in that room and toasted my replacement like I was already gone. I paused the video, then I looked at Ethan. "You toasted her," he swallowed. "I was drunk." "No," I said. "You were comfortable." His face crumpled slightly. "I made a mistake." "No, Ethan, you made reservations." Linda gripped the back of her chair. "You cold little—" "Careful," I said. One word. Quiet. It stopped her. Maybe because she finally understood I was not finished. Ethan understood too. His eyes moved to the laptop, then back to me. "Madison," he whispered. Not the last clip. The entire room heard him, and because they heard him, they understood there was something worse. Vanessa shook her head. "What last clip?" I looked at her then, really looked at her. For months I had imagined the woman who took my husband would be larger than life, crueler, smarter, more dangerous. But sitting there in her red dress with her lipstick trembling, Vanessa suddenly looked very young. Not innocent, never innocent. Just foolish enough to believe Linda Hayes would protect anyone except her son. "The last clip," I said, "is yours too." Then I played it. The private dining room appeared again. Ethan was gone. His chair sat empty. Linda and Vanessa remained at the table, champagne glasses low, their voices clear. Vanessa leaned forward. "What if Madison fights the divorce?" Linda laughed softly. "She won't. Women like her are terrified of being embarrassed. We'll make her think everyone already sees her as the problem." Vanessa looked nervous. "And the company card?" Linda waved one hand. "By the time she notices, Ethan will already have filed. She'll be too busy crying to audit anything." I let the silence stretch after the clip ended. No one looked at Linda now. They looked away from her. That was worse. Linda Hayes had spent her life fearing scandal, but scandal was not the worst thing that could happen to a woman like her. The worst thing was becoming someone people were embarrassed to acknowledge. I closed the laptop. Then I took a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. "These are the divorce papers," I said. "This is the billing dispute. This is the fraud report prepared for my bank and company accountant. This is a copy of the footage already sent to my attorney." Ethan stood slowly. "Madison, please, we can fix this." I removed my wedding ring. For 1 second, my hand shook. Only one. I placed the ring beside the hotel invoice. "No," I said. "You can explain it to your lawyer." Then I looked at Linda. "And you can explain your signature." The ring made almost no sound when it touched the table, but Ethan flinched like it had shattered something inside him. For a moment after I set the ring down, no one moved. The private dining room at the Rivergate Grand had become something between a courtroom and a funeral. The candles still burned, the lamb on the plates still steamed. Somewhere outside the closed doors, normal people were eating dinner, ordering wine, laughing too loudly at first dates and birthday toasts. Inside that room, the Hayes family was learning what silence sounded like when it no longer belonged to them. Ethan stared at the ring. I had worn it for 7 years. I had washed dishes with it, signed contracts with it, held Linda's wine glasses with it, straightened Ethan's tie with it. I had twisted it around my finger during arguments, pressed my thumb against it during lonely dinners, and once, during our 3rd anniversary, believed it meant we had survived something. Now it sat beside a hotel invoice paid with my company account. It had never looked smaller. "Madison," Ethan said. His voice cracked on my name, and for 1 weak second, the old part of me responded. The wife. The woman who used to hear pain in his voice and stepped toward him automatically. The woman who believed love meant walking across every room first. That woman took 1 breath. Then she stayed seated. Ethan moved around the table toward me. Rebecca's voice from our last meeting came back clearly. "Do not let him corner you emotionally in public. Men who lose control often try to manufacture intimacy." I lifted one hand. "Don't." He stopped. His eyes were red now, wet, desperate. I wondered if he had cried when he booked the suite. I wondered if his hands had shaken when he kissed Vanessa in the elevator. I wondered if he felt even 1 second of guilt when his mother toasted another woman with my money. Probably not. Guilt, I had learned, is often something people discover only after consequences arrive. "I messed up," he said. I almost laughed. Messed up, as if he had forgotten to pick up dry cleaning. "You had a system," I said. "That is not the same thing." His mouth opened, but Linda spoke first. "You will not speak to my son that way." It was automatic, reflexive, even exposed, even covered in the red wine she had dropped, even with her own voice still echoing from the last clip. Linda Hayes reached for control like a drowning woman reaching for the side of a boat. I turned to her. For 7 years, I had imagined what it would feel like to finally say everything. I thought it would be loud. I thought my hands would shake. I thought I would cry. Instead, I felt strangely gentle. Not toward her, toward myself. "I am done speaking to your son any way that makes your life easier," I said. Her face tightened. "You think this makes you strong?" "No," I said. "Leaving does." Uncle Robert cleared his throat. He was still standing by the window, like one hand pressed against the frame, looking older than he had an hour ago. "Linda," he said quietly, "you used her business account?" Linda turned on him. "This is family business." "No," he said. "This is fraud." The word landed harder because it came from one of them. Fraud. Not misunderstanding, not private matter, not marital complication. Fraud. Vanessa grabbed her purse. "I'm not staying for this." No one stopped her. That was perhaps the cruelest thing the room did to her. She had come expecting to be chosen publicly. She left without even a witness to chase her. At the door, she turned back once. "Ethan?" He did not look at her. He was still looking at me. Vanessa's face changed then. Just enough. The confidence drained, and beneath it was something smaller, uglier, and more frightened. She finally understood. Ethan had not planned a future with her. He had planned an escape from me, and Linda had sold it to her as destiny. The door closed behind Vanessa. Linda sat down slowly, one hand gripping the edge of the table. I had never seen her sit without arranging herself first. She looked suddenly old, not in years, but in structure. like the bones beneath her performance had finally become visible. "You have no idea what you've done," she whispered. I placed the folder back into my bag. "I know exactly what I've done. I gave everyone the same information you had." Ethan took another step toward me. "We can talk tomorrow," he said. "Please, just give me one night to explain." "One night?" I repeated. "You had 6 months of nights, maybe more. You spent them at Rivergate." That wasn't it. "Don't finish that sentence unless you want me to play the other invoices." He went silent. There it was again, the power of documents. Not because paper is louder than a person. Because paper does not beg. Paper does not revise itself. Paper does not suddenly remember context when it gets caught. I looked around the table. Some of the Hayes relatives could not meet my eyes. Some looked ashamed. Some looked angry, though not all of them knew who they were angry at yet. Families like that do not process truth immediately. First, they search for the person who made it visible. That was fine. I was not staying to be understood. I picked up my purse. Linda's voice followed me. "If you walk out now, you will regret it." I stopped at the door. That sentence, more than any other, showed me how little she knew me. For 7 years I had regretted staying quiet. I had regretted shrinking at her table. I had regretted explaining away Ethan's distance, his lies, his mother's cruelty, his little smiles at messages he turned away from me to read. Walking out was the first thing I had done in years that felt clean. I looked back. "No, Linda," I said, "you regret getting caught. Don't confuse that with me having regrets." Then I left. Daniel was standing in the hallway near the service station, carefully pretending he had not heard anything. "Mrs. Hayes," he said softly, "do you need a car?" "No, thank you." The lobby looked the same as it had when I entered. Marble floors, brass lamps, white orchids. The place where Ethan had kissed Vanessa sat under warm light, polished and spotless. But this time, I walked past it without feeling like it belonged to them. Outside, Savannah was humid and dark. The air smelled like rain on brick. I stood under the hotel awning and took my first full breath of the night. My phone started buzzing before the valet brought my car. Ethan, Linda. Ethan again, a number I did not recognize, then Ethan's Aunt Patricia, then Ethan. I turned the phone off. The next morning I woke up alone in the guest room of my own house. I had locked the bedroom door out of habit, though Ethan never came home. At 6:03 a.m. I made coffee, set the kitchen island, and opened my laptop. There were 38 missed calls, 22 from Ethan, 9 from Linda, 4 from numbers I did not know, 3 from relatives who had watched me be humiliated and had apparently discovered concern after the footage played. There were also messages. "Ethan, please answer. I love you." It meant nothing. "My mother pushed this too far. Vanessa manipulated me. Don't let one night destroy 7 years." I stared at that last one for a long time. One night, that was the story he had already begun writing for himself. One night, one mistake, one bad decision. One cruel overreaction from a wife who should have handled it privately. So I opened the Rivergate folder and looked at the timeline again. 6 hotel-related charges, 3 dinners, 2 jewelry purchases, 1 private dining deposit, 1 separation agreement, 1 text message from Vanessa about watching Linda finish me. Not one night, a pattern. At 8:15, Rebecca called. "I assume dinner happened," she said. "That depends on how you define dinner." I received 4 voicemails from Ethan's attorney before 7 this morning. He has an attorney already? Men who say they want to talk privately often call lawyers first. I looked at the wedding ring sitting on the counter. I had brought it home in the side pocket of my purse, not because I wanted it, but because I refused to leave anything of mine at Linda's table. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we file. We notify your accountant. We preserve all evidence. We make it very clear that your company is separate property and any unauthorized use of its accounts will be pursued." "And Ethan?" Rebecca's voice sharpened. "Ethan learns the difference between being sorry and being liable." By noon, the divorce petition was filed. By Friday, the bank dispute was formal. By the following Monday, Rivergate had issued a written confirmation that Linda Hayes was not an authorized user on the Maddox and Lane corporate account. Claire Donovan sent the email with a single line at the top. "I am sorry this happened under our roof. I appreciated that. Not because the hotel owed me comfort, because someone had finally apologized for the correct thing." Ethan tried to come home 3 days later. I watched him through the doorbell camera. He stood on the porch in the same navy suit he had worn to the dinner, though now it was wrinkled. He looked like a man who had slept badly and blamed everyone else for the bed. "Madison," he said into the camera, "please open the door." I pressed the button. "No." He flinched at my voice. "This is my house, too." "For now," I said. "Your attorney can arrange a time for you to collect your belongings." His face crumpled. "I lost everything." There it was. The line men like Ethan use when they mean they lost access to the woman who cleaned up after them. "No," I said. "You lost the version of your life where I paid for your lies." He lowered his head. "Do you still love me?" That question hurt more than it deserved to, because the answer was not simple. I had loved him. I had loved the man who picked up broken glass at a charity auction. I had loved the man who remembered how I took my coffee, who danced with me barefoot in our kitchen the first year we were married, who once drove 3 hours to bring me a forgotten contract because he said he liked watching me win. But that man was not standing on my porch. Maybe he never had been. "I loved a man who didn't exist," I said. Then I ended the call. 3 months later, the divorce settled faster than anyone expected. Ethan did not fight for the company once his lawyer saw the evidence. He did not fight for public sympathy once Linda's signature became part of the financial record. He did not fight for Vanessa either, though I heard she left her job after the Bradshaw Development Group quietly dropped her from the account. Linda sent one letter, not an email, not a text, a cream envelope, heavy paper, her handwriting on the front elegant as ever. Inside were 4 sentences. "Madison, I did what I thought was necessary to protect my son. I see now that I hurt you. I hope one day you understand a mother's fear. I am sorry." I read it once. Then I placed it in the Rivergate folder. Some apologies belong with the evidence. 1 year after the dinner, Maddox and Lane Events hosted a gala in the Magnolia Room at the Rivergate Grand. 400 guests. Live music, white orchids, perfect lighting, no family slideshow. At the end of the night, after the last donor left and my staff began clearing the room, I stood near the television where I had played the footage. The room looked different without them in it. Smaller, cleaner. Tessa came up beside me, holding 2 glasses of sparkling water. "Thinking about last year?" she asked. "A little." "Regret anything?" I looked at the empty table, the polished floor, the quiet screen. Then I thought of Linda telling me a good wife knew when to stay silent. I thought of Ethan asking me not to embarrass him. I thought of Vanessa in her red dress, smiling like my pain was already scheduled. "No," I said. Tessa handed me a glass. "To clean exits." I smiled. "To documented ones." Later that night I went home, took off my heels by the door, and stood in my quiet kitchen. No Ethan, no Linda, no phone buzzing with explanations disguised as apologies, just silence. But this silence was different. This one was mine. The Hayes family thought the footage would destroy my marriage. They were wrong. The marriage had already been destroyed in hotel rooms, private dinners, hidden charges, and every moment my husband let his mother teach him that my dignity was negotiable. All the footage did was turn on the lights. And for the first time in 7 years, I was not the wife being discussed behind closed doors. I was the woman holding the remote.